I'm Ryan Eakin, and this is Baycats Banter, the official podcast of the Baycats. And today I'm joined by the commissioner of the IBL, John Kastner, to discuss the state of the IBL as we head into the 2021 season. John, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
So right now I just want to ask you the most obvious question perhaps, and that's outside of obviously restrictions needing to come to an end and all that kind of stuff, what needs to happen to have a 2021 season?
Well, I think the thing for us is the IBLs. It's sort of in the same position as I was going to say the rest of the province, but maybe the rest of the world, in as much as a successful rollout of vaccines, an accelerated rollout of vaccines. Our population still adhering to social distancing measures to reduce spread of the variant. And I think in many ways we're optimistic about those positive outcomes. If we look at Ontario this week, 127 up to 130 some thousand vaccines a day, which equates to 1 million a week. There's already 3 million people in Ontario have their first vaccine. So if we do 1 million a week and we're 8, 9, 10 weeks from starting the season, all of a sudden you're 11, 12 million people vaccinated in the province of a population of 13.3 million. So we're in the same boat as everybody else. And that's what we need to have happen. And I'm optimistic and confident it will.
You recently came out with a statement saying that the league is planning a July 1st start or July 15th start. What does a July 1st season look like? And then what does a July 15th season look like as of right now?
Yeah, so the number of things is we've built some metrics out, and we've had time to do this. But as soon as we realized we weren't going to start in May, and then we had hoped to start in June, and once we realized that, Herb Morrell, who does our schedule, and we started to build out some metrics. So a July 1st start would mean that we would play 25 regular season games, and instead of finishing the playoffs Labor Day weekend, we would finish the regular season Labor Day weekend. And then subsequent to that, our playoffs would be truncated. And we've left it open as to what those would look like based on, when we finish and even things like what the weather's like in September. We might have 4 teams and do a best of 3 in the first round and have the final best of 5, for example. We might, come up with something more creative. A July 15th schedule takes us down to about 21 games instead of 35. And with a similar finish in right around Labor Day weekend. We can't go too much past sort of the middle of third week of September for a number of reasons. One is historically weather's really starts to change. I've been to games in the league final in Barrie where you're around Labor Day weekend and you start the game in a pair of shorts and a golf shirt, and by the 7th inning you've gone to the car to see how many layers of clothes do you have. And the other thing is players. If there is some return to normalcy in September, U.S. college guys, whether they be Canadian or imports, they're starting to leave Labor Day weekend. So do we have an accurate championship? I got to tell you, this year, the quality of the season and the validity of the championship this country might be secondary to us just getting a season in.
I was actually going to ask you about that because at the recent league meeting, you determined that, and the league determined that any team that wants to have imports, but most teams have decided not to. Are you afraid at all of maybe an asterisk championship? Because maybe if 2 teams have imports, they might easily make it to the finals. Or, as you said, is it just a matter of playing baseball this season?
It's really a matter of playing baseball. And I think everybody who, whether it be Toronto or Barrie or Kitchener, whomever, I think we will measure success this year as to how many games we play. And we'll measure success by the fact that we're back on the field. The other thing, I remember a quote by Adam Silver, who is the commissioner of the NBA. And last year, a guy named Chris Russo, who does a Mad Dog Sports podcast, he said, do you think there should be an asterisk beside the champion of the season? And Adam Silver said, absolutely. Because whoever wins this season has accomplished so much and gone through so much and gone to such a great effort that there should be an asterisk beside it because it's remarkable. And I think for us, given that we haven't played ball in a calendar year, if we start in July, we will not have had baseball for 15 months. Success this year will be that we got 21, 25 games in, had playoffs, and we gave out the Jack Dominico Trophy to somebody in September.
That July 15th start that you mentioned, is that the latest, similar to last season, that the league is willing to operate or start a season? Because I imagine late July, early August, that's just might not be possible to start a season.
Yeah, there's various schools of thought on that. I know that some teams have said if we don't get going until August and we can play a 14 game round robin where you play each team a home and away, I know that several teams have said we'll do it. We will, regardless of what that looks like. You might end up with 7 home games, or if we talk about a weekend tournament or something like that. There is divided thought on that. Some teams have said, if we can't start by July 15th, we don't want to play. There's too much work goes into it. It's too difficult. Other teams have said, no, we'll play regardless. I think once we get to July, we'll have a clearer vision of what the season is going to look like. And I think at that point, we'll have to start to make decisions about, who's in and who's not. We've never said that if somebody didn't want to play because of COVID concerns or whatever, we've never said there's nothing punitive about that. That's the team's decision. But my position is we'll go ahead with as many teams as we can, as late as we can.
And last season, the Baycats, Brantford, and the Panthers all decided pretty early that they weren't going to take part in 2020 season. The league obviously didn't operate anyways in 2020. As of right now, if there is a July 1st start, July 15th start, is the expectation that all 8 teams will be taking part in that type of season?
Yes, yeah, for sure. In our board call on Monday night, the inference was as we started to make plans, there was an opportunity for questions from the floor. When we had Dr. Tim on, I said, has anybody got any questions, any concerns, anything that you want to let us know? And it was crickets. Nobody said anything. So I have not heard it inferred or implied or suggested that we might have less than all 8 teams if we can get going when we think we're going to get going.
And you mentioned the fact that you guys now have a doctor helping you guys out with the process of return to play. Just how important is that, especially dealing with the political side of things? And at what point in this process did you decide that was pretty much a necessity to have someone like that help you guys out?
Yeah, so Dr. Tim Reynolds is who we've appointed as our medical officer health for the IBL. He's an incredible resource. I met Dr. Tim through my involvement with the Ontario Hockey Federation. I'm on the board of the OHF as well. Dr. Tim did a great job helping us craft the OHF's return to play plans, which by and large were never used. We did have with some teams on the ice, and we got provincial approval to do that. And Dr. Tim was instrumental to our return to play, such as it was. The big thing for us is that we understand whether it's the CFL or whether it's us or whether it's the OHL, the province is going to have to sign off on a plan. So Dr. Tim does 2 things for us. One, he has the ear of the province. He's directly involved with health authorities and also the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, which is the ministry we're responsible to. He has the cell numbers of people, and when he calls, they know my first name. The other thing is his skill set is to craft the plans themselves and to say for Welland to play, the plan might be different than it is for Barrie. He's got the ability to modify those plans to suit those areas of the province. It was very fortunate that he agreed to join us. I'm not sure that we would have had the capacity to put together articulated plans on our own. We may have could have worked with Baseball Ontario to do it, but this is a great ally for us.
And I'm going to ask you a question that maybe a commissioner maybe not like, but if you had to go back in time and tell yourself in March of 2020 when the pandemic first started and clearly the baseball season was in jeopardy in 2020, if you could go back in time, was there anything that you would tell yourself about maybe do this different, maybe do that different, or do you not kind of look like that approach of going back in time and thinking about that?
Yeah, I don't know if we would have or should have done anything differently. I mean, whether it's the industry I work in during the day, I mean, I run a museum. What should we have done differently? I don't know. The only thing I can say is to reflect back is how astounding this is. Like this time last year, I was sure we were going to be playing by Canada Day of 2020, and now we're hopeful to play Canada Day 2021. As I reflect, that's the biggest takeaway for me is that I never thought we'd be 15 months out from where we were.
As we shoot this podcast today, I'm confident that, as I'm sure you are, that we can have a 2021 season. And this will be my last question about the 2021 season, the pandemic. But if this league can't operate in 2021, is there a concern that this league might lose teams in 2022 or that the league itself might be in jeopardy? Just where do you stand on worst case scenario where the league doesn't operate in 2021?
I don't think so. The costs that we incur in this league for operators are largely related to game presentation. That the day of bringing in players, flying in players, putting them up boarding houses, buying baseballs, paying for umpires, paying for a bus, those are all costs related to playing games. If we don't play games, we don't have a whole lot of cost. We don't pay baseball insurance, etc. Pay for our website and that sort of stuff. But I don't think, as much as I want to play in 2021, I'm not convinced that if we didn't, that it would be the apocalypse. I don't think it would have a long-term effect on the league. There might be a team or two, an owner or two, or a group that runs a team or two say, hey, we're tired and we're out and we're going to flip this over to somebody else. But I just don't see it as being any sort of end of days result for us.
And as you said, there's also the possibility if this league operates in 2021 and you guys extend into September, you lose imports, you lose college guys. Is there an option maybe you guys will debate about expanding rosters, especially on the pitching side of things, where I'm sure there's going to be a lot of injuries. I mean, guys haven't pitched perhaps in 2 or 3 years. Is there a possibility at all? I know you guys already have in place the junior call-ups, which is a massive essential for this league. Just where do you stand on that for this season, expanded rosters?
Yeah, so those are some of the details that we're going to work out. So, for example, our signing deadline right now is the last Monday of June. We're talking about making it, the last Monday of July or the first Monday of August or something like that. So we know we need to be nimble in that regards. We do have a 25-man roster. We're talking about it's informal early discussions about going to 30, maybe even 35. And the other thing we're talking about is if you lose a player, late in the year, you lose a player the 25th of August, perhaps you still are tied to a 25 or 30-man roster, but you can replace that guy. Unlike other years where you couldn't make a change after the last Monday in June. So there are some tools in our toolbox for us to facilitate this longer season and the unique circumstances that are presenting themselves because of COVID. We're very cognizant of those scenarios, and we know there are solutions to them.
And that one rule that you mentioned about replacing a player that maybe gets injured, moves on to a different team, different league, is that an option that you might consider 2022, 2023? Because I know in the past, it hasn't affected the Baycats, but it's affected other teams. And I know London had that happen in 2017. They lost a guy to the Can-Am League before the playoffs, and it pretty much crushed their season. Just where do you stand on replacing guys before the play? I know you can't replace a guy mid-playoffs, but before the playoffs begin, where do you stand on expanding that in terms of, instead of having a hard deadline, if you do lose a guy, there is an option to replace a player?
Well, we do have a rule. We have a rule now that even after the signing deadline, if you lose a guy to a season-ending injury after the signing deadline, he can be replaced at the discretion of the commissioner. I've invoked that almost every time it's been requested because somebody will say, I've lost a guy, he's broken his arm, he's injured, he's this. The one thing we don't have anything for is if you lose a guy to another league. That is a bit perilous. Part of the issue for that is sometimes guys that go to another league, they only go for 72 hours or they go for a weekend. They go, they get cut, they decide it's not for them, and they come back. So that's why we've never had it for that player. But we do have it for a person who suffered a season-ending injury or has gone away to school and left somebody shorthanded.
I just wanted to, because I know that's been an issue in the past where teams have had seasons absolutely get crushed because of, I think of London in 2017 with Guerreva in the season where the Baycats had that amazing season. I just want to ask about expansion. I feel like every interview we've had over the last few months has been involved in an expansion question. Is expansion in 2022 still an option, or because of the pandemic, is a 2023 start more likely in terms of expansion?
Yeah, 2023 for sure. I mean, we had hoped to have a team in 2021. We'd hope to add that team or teams in 2022. In both of those cases, those expansion applications involved a lot of capital upgrades to their facilities. And they relied on the municipalities for that. Because of the emergency orders in the province, the recurring emergency orders, we're now at, I think, 3, possibly 4 or something. In many cases, those work on recreational facilities were halted. So our capital projects and capital that a municipality might have for their ballpark has now been geared to the childcare center that needs upgrades to ventilation, or to people working remotely from City Hall and other more pressing issues. So I would have liked to have had a team in 2021 and a team in 2022. I really think now it's probably a team or hopefully two in 2023, I think.
And I'll get you out on this last question. I appreciate you coming on. You mentioned the future of expansion and perhaps having 9 teams, 10-team league by 2023, 2024. This 5 years from now, when you look at this league, what do you think it can be? Yeah, there's absolute potential.
I think 5 years from now, I'd like to see a 10-team league. I'd like to see 2 5-team divisions. I'd like to see a lot of the initiatives that are currently in the works, whether they be live streaming games, whether they be complete adherence to our minimum standards, more and more teams working together to promote the league extensively throughout our footprint. I think that'd be success for us in 5 years. And from a competition standpoint, the one thing I've always said is sort of the litmus test for us is that every team in the league has a chance to win every night. And, we're much closer to that than we were. When I took over or became the commissioner 4 years ago, we were sort of a 2-tier league. The top half of the league sort of went off and hid, and the bottom half of the league was very different. We don't have that as much anymore. And part of that is a drastic improvement of the Welland franchise, which was in Burlington. Guelph, that didn't complete a season the first time in IBL history, 100 years, but a team not complete a season. So, Guelph is, much better than it was previously. Hamilton, was much better than it was previously. So all of a sudden, we've got the usual suspects, London, Brantford, and Kitchener, and now they're joined by these other teams as well. So, but that's why I think would be, if you ask me if I could pencil out what I wanted the league to look like in 5 years, those are the things I'd like to see.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, especially about the competition level in this league. I think there's a 2021 season. I think 7, if not all 8 teams have a chance to have a deep playoff run. So, John, I appreciate you coming on today, and hopefully you can make your way up to Coates Stadium sometime this summer for a Baycats Saturday night home game. So,
nothing would be better. We talked today about Canada Day, and everybody, all Canadians look forward to Canada Day. But geez, wouldn't it be great to be at a ballpark? As much as I want it, and the league wants it, I think we all want it, and I think it'd do us all a world of good to get out to the ballpark.
Absolutely, looking forward to it and hoping for it too. So, thanks for coming on today, John.
Ryan, always a pleasure. Thanks for asking.